right, we're off to the races. Next up, we have Susan Bachman, Manufacturing Requirements System Lead and Oros Admin at General Motors, to talk about her experience with Partner Portal and partner sharing applications. We will have chat at the end of her presentation. She's got some polling questions as well, so just use those icons. I know you're used to it by now. Susan, over to you.
Thanks, Amy. So I'm fortunate to be one of the last presenters because it allows me to make a couple of assumptions. First, you understand the basics of the knowledge-aware model for managing and reusing knowledge. And second, since no one is just still hanging around for the awesome food this year, no one ever really does that, but I'm assuming since you're still here, you do see the value in implementing this approach at your own company. And either you have some of these applications and these systems already in place, or you're planning to move in that direction. I also think it's safe for me to assume that your companies don't operate in a vacuum. Most of us rely on some external partners to get our goods and services out the door, leveraging their expertise and resources, the talent of their people, and often their strategic location. So given that, we really need our entire team of players to be able to share our knowledge base and collaborate in real time from one gold source across all those companies and around the globe. So today I'm going to show you how our global manufacturing engineering team and our partners are utilizing two of the new Oros partner tools to do just that. So why use these partner tools? Well, how do external partners currently find and use the knowledge that they need that applies in their role and their process workflow at the time that they need it? So on one hand, we have the Oros approach to managing and applying knowledge that we're all familiar with. That was my assumption number one. Versus how many of our suppliers get that knowledge into their flow of work, like document libraries that are out on supplier websites, email checklists that stay in those silos, SharePoint folders and open issues lists, that kind of thing. And there are risks and costs associated with that old way and missed opportunities. A lesson isn't really learned across an organization until it affects change to the way that work is done and it gets implemented into the systems and processes where it applies. And that's hard. It's so basic and it's so vital, but yet it is a challenge, even internally to a company, let alone across all their external partners. And it's especially difficult when you're working with dead document libraries and in emails. So comparing those two approaches, our internal versus our external, I want to go back to that navigation concept that Jeff had in his kickoff yesterday and a few others have referred to. So while we may be humming along to our destination following our fancy Oros GPS, we're basically handing our external partners a paper map and asking them, travel along with us. Come on, follow us. So we already have these Oros processes internally that address these kinds of issues. So now we have a new set of tools to extend those solutions externally to encompass that entire program team. And those tools are partner sharing and partner portal. So to give me an idea of how familiar you may be with these newer tools from Oros, other than seeing it next to my name on the agenda or the sneak peek that Jeff gave yesterday, before coming into the conference, had you ever heard of the partner portal or the partner sharing modules? So I'm going to go over to the chat icon and then switch to the polling. See, so far I have 100% yes with 6 votes. Now the votes are coming in. We've got about 40 people responding, and we're leaning toward yes. About 63% have heard of it. 37 have not. Okay, so we're not necessarily starting from scratch with everybody. And I'm going to go back to presentation. So there are two different tools available for working with external partners with some very key differences. Partner sharing is a K-PAC share and sync module that requires the partner to actually have their own instance of Oros. And what the module does is it creates a duplicate community or COP in the partner's instance and then populates it with the K-PACs that have been marked to share and then keeps them up to date with scheduled sync packages. And the power in that is that the partner can then take that knowledge and apply those K-PACs into their own Oros assessments and workflows. So we give them the knowledge and then they can apply it internally. While the partner portal, on the other hand, it's an interface that allows an external partner access at the individual asset level. So here we're talking like K-PACs, K-PAC sets, assessments, and issues. And this allows the team to work collaboratively within the items in your instance of Oros without the partner needing to have their own instance of Oros. So we're going to go into the partner sharing module first. That's the one where the other company has an instance of Oros. So that brings us to the next polling question. Are there companies that you currently work with that also have an Oros instance, yes or no? And this is to kind of get us thinking about opportunities that we may have to capitalize on the fact that you're both Oros users, or maybe thinking about who it might be value added to kind of nudge in that direction to start to take advantage of this capability. So I'm going to go over and look at the poll and see where we stand. And then once you vote, you can see the results as well. I'm seeing about a 60-40 split. So we have quite a few in the audience that know other companies that they're working with that also have an Oros instance. So that's great. We have a lot of opportunities for sharing our knowledge directly through partner sharing. So that's awesome. All right. So at GM, we're sharing our manufacturing requirement K-PACs or MRs. And I'm not going to throw a bunch of GM acronyms at you, but MR is one that I have to use. It's just ingrained in my being. So we're sharing these MRs with our joint venture partners in China through the partner sharing module. Why MRs? Why are they so important to share? Well, MRs are criteria that are evaluated and verified at key milestones during the vehicle development process that enable a vehicle to follow our set build sequence, standard processing, bill of equipment, etc. And by sharing them with our joint manufacturing partners, these now common MRs will drive design for manufacturing on our partners' local vehicle programs that also happen to be manufactured at the same plant as GM vehicle programs. And what does that do for us? Well, having all programs follow the same standardized work, so all products going down that line, following the same manufacturing design standards, the same BOP, equipment, etc. That drives compatibility between the programs and enhances our plant's flexibility. So the more that knowledge is reused, following the knowledge-aware approach, the more knowledge is reused, the better it gets. So if you think about the vitality score on K-PACs, we get that as an indicator of, is this piece of knowledge active and relevant? Is it being used? And when it's being used, we're getting feedback on it and it's being updated. So we have that confidence that that piece of knowledge is up to date. So having our joint ventures evaluating these same MRs on their local programs increases the number of times we've evaluated a given requirement, increases the sets of eyes and the breadth of experience with that requirement, which then gives us more opportunities to capture more lessons learned and continue to evolve that criteria. And then also with us both having an instance of OROS, we're not just sharing K-PACs. It's opened that door for us for collaboration and sharing of new OROS application ideas, which can then help us to both grow our use cases. And then we could also, if we see a joint application that we both want to try in our instances, maybe we can divide and conquer when it comes to developing, writing the K-PACs, doing the testing, piloting. So we have many win-wins for both of us. Okay, so sharing the content. What is sent through the partner sharing module is set at 3 levels. First is the COP, and that is shared by adding it to the admin's partner sharing outbound screen, which I'm going to show on the next slide in more detail. Then each K-PAC, each individual K-PAC is marked with the sharing partner company. And what this does is it allows us to send only a subset of K-PACs within that shared COP. So in our case, for example, we're not yet sharing requirements that are specific to trucks. But in a given COP, say one that's related to chassis structure MRs, for example, there are some that are truck specific, and therefore we shouldn't send them. But the rest are universal, and we do want to send them. So we have that second level of access to filter out certain K-PACs in a community. And then also on top of that filter, we can determine which K-PAC elements get sent. So there's a screen, an admin screen, where we check off which K-PAC elements are going to be shared and that will be included in the copy of the K-PAC that goes out to our partner. So the management of the K-PAC sharing it's an overall admin function, but it can be delegated, and it's controlled in this partner sharing admin screen. So in the top left corner is that button to add a shared community that adds it to the list. And you do that, you click the button, it opens the COP chooser, same interface we're used to working with. You pick the COP to share. And then once that COP is added to this list, there's a little gear icon under Manage Elements. And that's where you can set those elements that are going to share and sync and which ones are not. So that's our K-PAC element filter. And then up in the top center of the screen, there's the partner identifier K-PAC EE, or extended element, and that's set on the screen. And that's the element that must be populated in each of those individual K-PACs in a shared COP in order for that K-PAC to be part of the subset that goes out. So there's where our K-PAC filtering ability is at. We also have some date and status columns on this screen. There's a last sent date that tells us when a sync update package was last sent. So the last time we published some kind of update that went out to our partner, versus the initially sent date when the original COP and the initial grouping of K-PACs went. And then next to that status column on each line, we do have an option to download a copy of the latest zip file that was sent out, so we know exactly what went. And then a delete icon at the end of the COP row where we can remove that COP from the shared list and stop the sync of all updates. Okay, so we've got the content set up for sharing. Then how does this process play out? So first, the new shared COP is accepted by the recipient's partner sharing inbound admin page. And at that point, a COP with that same name and the same ID abbreviation is created in the inbound or the recipient's instance. And along with that come the COP settings like K-PAC element names and settings, element types, choice lists, that kind of thing. This also includes the multimedia and support documents if you've checked those elements to be shared. Then the shared K-PACs are created in the partner's COP during that initial share, again displaying only the elements that we've checked off. After that point, published updates to any of those shared K-PACs and then new K-PACs that are marked to share are pushed in daily packages. And at that point, the recipient accepts that package, the sync package for the COP, to initiate the updates in their system. Now the K-PAC elements, this one's caught me a couple of times. If you add any new K-PAC elements in that COP after you initially sent the initial setup package, Those new elements need to be checked to share those by the admin, since they are by default unchecked when they're first added, when they're first created. Okay, so we're going to move on to the partner portal. This one has been around a little bit longer, so to help me get a feel for how widely used the portal is within our audience today, our next polling question is, does your company currently use the OROS Partner Portal? This one's leaning heavily toward the no side. We've got it's hovering around 73-75% of the votes coming in are saying no, the company does not currently use the OROS Partner Portal. Okay, well, let's show you what it's all about. So, how the partner portal differs from partner sharing. Like I said before, it extends out to assets other than just K-PACs. And it is actually, it's an interface that does not require that partner to have OROS. The user's access to the portal is determined by their user type. For us, that is minimal access users. And then from there, access is then granted at the asset level by the actual content owner, either by adding that person's user ID or the ID's company association, depending on the type of item. So how are we using the portal at GM? Well, so far, we've moved some of the resources that are used by our integrated tooling suppliers out of those document libraries and into K-PACs that have been set up for those companies to access in the portal. Some examples of that, including our common datum strategy documentation and some ME standards that cover requirements for mechanical design, engineering processes, tool construction, etc. Our initial driver to implement the partner portal at GM was to get out of working MR assessments and issues with our partners using Excel exports and imports, email back and forth. And we have utilized the portal on a couple of programs so far to work collaboratively with alliance partner OEMs to assess MRs on joint product designs, as well as processing deviations to those MRs and resolving virtual build issues. So once a partner user has an OROS ID, so they do first need to be onboarded to OROS, to your instance of OROS, as the right type of user. So once they're on board with an ID, what they can access in the portal is set up by the asset owner. So for K-PACs and K-PAC sets, they require the user's associated company name to be on that item. So we call this element on our K-PAC company name, imagine that, and it's a global choice list of all of our suppliers and partners by name. To view and edit assessments, the user's ID must be on the list of evaluators on that assessment. And then for issues, it must be one of the issue assignees, or it can be an issue that was created by that user. So these are screenshots from the partner portal. This is the user interface that the external partner would see when accessing their items. So you can see that there are tabs across the top to navigate to each type of OROS item. And portal users, they don't navigate through the COP chooser and run searches in COPs like we do internally. Everything they can access is presented to them in this format with these categories across the top. So on the K-PAC tab, the user enters the K-PAC ID in the box, and if access is set up for that K-PAC, it will open in a pop-up window, just like shown here, looking just like it does for our internal OROS users. Similarly, on the K-PAC set tab, the user needs to know and enter the set ID. The set window will then open with the set details in the left-hand pane, and then the list of K-PACs that are falling into that set listed on the right. And again, just like before, only the K-PACs in that set with their company association on them will open for that user. The user's assessment tab in the portal will list the assessments that the user's been assigned to them, the evaluations that they have to do. So they have assessments assigned to them. They're listed as evaluator. In this example, there's only one assigned to this person. And then clicking on that assessment ID will open the assessment in a pop-up window. And here we see the same line item grid that we're used to seeing when working directly in Oros. And it functions the same way. The user has all the editing capabilities that come with being an evaluator in that COP where that assessment is located. They have all the navigation tools on the left-hand pane. They can run the filters, see the header. They can change their views across the top, do groupings and all that. And just like before, if they try to open a K-PAC from this view and their company's not listed on the K-PAC, it will not open for them. Then the capabilities in the streams for adding attachments and raising issues are the same as any evaluator working directly in Oros. This is an example of the attachment upload screen. And a portal user can attach an attachment by clicking the paperclip icon, or see the attachments that are already on the line by clicking the number associated with that line. And here's the screen to raise an issue. Again, same screens in process. They click the issue icon on the assessment line and select the issue type, which is set at the COP where this assessment is located, and then they go from there. In addition to raising issues from the assessment lines, portal users also have an issues tab where it's broken down into issues assigned to me and issues as creator, the two lists. And clicking the issue ID will open the issue. And once the issue is open, the issue displays and edits the same way as our internal users would see it, and they can edit and save from there. So the benefits we've seen from using the partner portal. As I said several times, that user interface has the same look and feel for both internal and external users. So now we can use the same training material, we can use the same terminology, we can share the same screenshots. So it just makes it easier to communicate with the team. We have real-time collaboration in one master database versus updating Excel files that are being emailed back and forth. We have one open issues database with the opportunity to capture our lessons learned that are linked to the program and the associated K-PAC to get that closed loop learning going. And then we have traceability. So Oros records that record of who provided the feedback or made the update and when. So we had such success with using the partner portal with an alliance partner OEM that now we're working on bringing some of our strategic tooling suppliers on board in Oros and are looking to maybe utilize the portal for things like assessments, tool shop, checklists, and deliverables at key milestones. And this would be a new process for our internal users as well. So this is an undertaking. We have these checklists out on SharePoint. Again, you download it, you use the version that you used on the last program, but maybe the version on SharePoint is newer. All of the usual issues that we have with the document libraries. Tooling standards and task instructions. So I talked earlier about sharing the tooling standards. Well, this is the next phase of breaking them down into more precise, actionable chunks, time-based, that can be placed into the flow of work and then provisioned to our suppliers that need to take action on those. We're looking at doing the same kind of a breakdown with our standardized work too. And then having suppliers raise their own deviation request issues and lessons learned directly in the related assessment, and then work collaboratively on them from there. And ultimately, have those deliverables that actually linked to program timing and then that standardized work. So that by using the portal, now we have the whole team, all of the players, regardless of what company you're at, can be reusing that same set of knowledge provisioned to the right people at the right time. So that's the vision. It's a big vision. We have a lot of chunks to work on along the way, but that's where we're moving, so that we can move along that implementation maturity curve that Josh showed yesterday. And the partner portal is really one of the most powerful tools that we have in our arsenal that can help get us there.
Excellent. Very clear, Susan. I like your presentation style. So we have several questions. We'll start with Anthony at Denso is asking, OEM product design specifications are difficult for suppliers and OEMs due to format, non-actionable inversions, change points of specs. Any chance of General Motors using Oros for design specs? And then he says, you would have at least one partner, smiley face.
So I can't speak outside of the manufacturing engineering space, but like I said, we're taking baby steps because this is a big elephant. You don't eat it in one bite. So we've got some of our tooling standards out in the portal, but they're still the big PDF files. And what we're doing is, we've got multiple versions, and maybe when you were assigned a program and you were kicked off with your SOR, you were told, okay, you're going to use, this is the line in the sand, you're using this standard. So we've got the multiple revisions that different suppliers may be using on different programs. Down the road, we want to do exactly what Anthony's saying. We want to take those giant files, and we're already looking at one of them, and break it into smaller sections. I think he's got it down to 30 sections now, where we can say this section applies at this point in the process, and it applies to these kind of strategic suppliers. And then we can start to make actionable pieces. So we're moving there. As far as product design specs, that, again, I can't speak to that because I'm in the manufacturing space.
Sure. Okay, Nick has two questions. We'll start with, so in the portal, there's no way for them to see K-PACs or K-PAC sets, even if flagged to them if they do not have the ID?
That's right. They do need to know the ID or the set ID. So what we've been doing is, to make it easier, creating large sets. So if we know we want to share all of our tooling standards with our suppliers, we make one set, and the filter is all active K-PACs in this COP. And then we give them the set ID. So then when they open the set in Oros, or in the portal, I should say, and you've got the screen that shows the filters and all that created the set, and then you have the list of the K-PACs. So you can see on that K-PAC screen, we've actually put in the description of the K-PAC a brief table of contents. So you can see at a glance, maybe that set has 50 files in it. You can use filters and you can see which one within that set you want. So we're using sets to get us around that.
Okay. And his second comment and possible question, yes, question is portal. Portal, if you give a supplier an assessment, how do you ensure that all the K-PACs in the assessment are set up for them to have access to them and see the details to properly complete the assessment?
Okay. We actually ran into this on our projects with our alliance partner OEM. We did not give them access to the individual K-PACs. However, when you have that assessment open, under your views menu, you have the same option to add columns. So you can see basically everything that's in the K-PAC without opening it. And then we created saved views. They would say, this is this partner's OEM view. And they could go to that as their default and see the columns that they needed in order to complete the assessment.
Perfect. And I'm realizing we're running short on time, so I need to type in the survey real quick. We've gotten a lot of fantastic comments. They really loved your presentation, and specifically, I liked Carlo's comment that said, exciting vision, glad to see manufacturing getting on board at much greater depth. So good stuff. Survey is in the chat window. And next up at 1:10 p.m. Eastern. Jeff Moffel will take the stage again and share with us what's new with Oros IQ. And then we'll follow that up with a wrap up. So we're getting there, everyone. So glad you're sticking with us, and let's meet over at 1:10. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.